I want to talk to you today about living as Christians in the meantime. So, meantime, what does that mean? That's the in-between time. Like, for example, it's in between when someone makes a promise to you and then the delivery. Or the meantime is whenever you make a decision that you're going to go to Hawaii and you purchase the ticket, and then Honolulu happens. The meantime, that in-between time. You know, some of our mean times are somewhat trivial. Like, for example, you know, whenever you arrive at the doctor's office and then you're in the waiting room, then all of a sudden you see the doctor. So there's brief, trivial in-between time. And then there's significant in-between time. Like, for example, when we think about today's gospel, or whenever we think about what it's referring to. You know, Jesus has come, and he has done his messianic work on earth, and he has freed us and brought the kingdom in, and then Jesus ascended into heaven. So he was here, and then he left, and we have the promise that he will return again, and the kingdom will be fully realized in our midst. Now, that's the in-between time that we're in, and that's the meanwhile back at the ranch moment. Now, how many of you remember Bonanza? Do you remember that Bonanza? You know, they invented this interesting little transitional tool, you know, which was meanwhile back at the ranch. And there was all kind of interesting things that would happen back at the ranch, you know. So, like, I remember one episode. Do you remember Hop Sing? By any chance, Hop Sing was the Asian cook, right? And you had Hoss and Little Joe and Pa, remember? And so they were all doing things, you know, of great interest, you know. And I can remember one episode, what happened was there was a bully who was in this episode, and this bully was bullying the Asian cook Hop Sing, and he cut off his ponytail. Now, those were in the days whenever, if men had long hair, you know, there was kind of like a culture issue going on. And so Hop Sing was very upset by that, and Little Joe Cartwright went out to confront the bully. And so you saw him confront the bully, and then all of a sudden, Little Joe got accused of, the bully was murdered 2 days later, and then a little bit into the story, Little Joe was accused of the murder. So now, back at the ranch, what Hop Sing was doing was, he was there referring back to ancient Chinese tool called chops, which was a way of doing fingerprinting. And so then it would show a little bit more confusion that was going on with Little Joe. He was taken into prison. Then all of a sudden, back at the ranch, you know, there's Hop Sing doing a little bit more work, and he's figuring out exactly what to do. And it's Hop Sing, you know, doing what he needed to do that actually got the fingerprint lifted from the murder weapon, and Little Joe was freed. So he did some really good work. So what do we do when we're waiting? Okay? And especially when we're waiting for something important like the second coming of Christ. So let's take a look at today's parable and kind of decipher it a little bit. So you have 10 bridesmaids, and by the way, if you like parables, we have 3 in a row. So today we have one, and we'll have it for the next 2 Sundays. So we have 10 bridesmaids who are given an assignment, go out and be prepared for the return of the groom. So they all do that, and then what happens, though, is, to their surprise, is that the groom isn't there when they expected. So they were ready to do their job, which was to light the groom's path, but he wasn't there as they expected. Now, they fell asleep, and then they were rose with a shout, you know, that the groom had arrived, and what happened was a lot of the oil lamps went out. But the wise ones had extra oil, so they were able to fill it up and do their job, but the unwise ones didn't. And so you know what the story is, then go off to the dealer and get one, because we can't loan this to you. Now, we could probably do a sermon on that, like, why not? I mean, why couldn't they have loaned it? But in this story, they weren't able to do that. And so off they went, and then the wedding happened, because the groom did come back, the doors are shut, and then these people can't come back in, and then that allows then the commentator to say, you know, you don't know when the time is coming, when the second coming will arrive. So that's kind of like the story. Did you notice in there that both the wise and the foolish bridesmaids, they all do just about the same thing? You know, so like 90% of what they do is the same. You know, they all go to meet the bridegroom. They all have oil lamps ready. They have their job assignments. They all fall asleep, and they all get awakened. but there is a difference. 5 of them have extra oil. Now, how do you get to the point where you get extra oil? Well, you have to not only be prepared to be ready for the coming of the groom, you have to also be proactive enough to realize that maybe there will be a delay. And also to prepare for the delay, you see. And that becomes very crucial in this. Now, some people would say that this is a great day to preach a sermon on eschatological living. So eschatology, some of you may know that word. That means the second coming of Christ. Okay, so when Jesus will return again. So that could make for a good sermon in a sense. But have you ever noticed that with a lot of people, like my background is a Catholic, now as an Episcopalian, we don't talk much about the second coming, do we? I mean, we're not rapture-oriented people. Like, we wouldn't necessarily be talking about that much, but, all of our scripture and our tradition says it's really a good idea for us from time to time to realize that everything we do, we are doing in the light of Jesus will return again. See, that kingdom will materialize. That justice and peace that has been promised from of old will occur, you see. But what do we do in the meantime? See, what do we do in the meantime? Now, that's really difficult. The Native American culture has a concept called thin skin. I believe it's actually thin skin. Doesn't mean what we mean by thin skin. What it means is that there are events where Native Americans actually experience that the kingdom of God bursts through right there, right now, in the moment. And they have this incredible experience of God. How many of you in the room have ever had an experience where someone came back to you maybe years later and they said to you, whenever you picked up the phone and called me that one day, that changed my life because I was going down a bad path or I turned around. Have you ever had experiences like that where someone said, you said something to them, you did something for them, you brought them a meal, you did different kind of things and it just changed them right then and there? See, don't minimize those, because those probably are moments where we allow the kingdom to burst through, because that's what we do while we wait. You see, while we wait for this kingdom to materialize once and for all, peace and justice reigning, and this being the ideal kingdom that spreads God and all his justice and all that God is about, until that comes in the future, having enough oil means that you sometimes experience it even now. The first gig I ever had as a public speaker was I was called to go to do a keynote address for nurse anesthetist. Now back then I didn't even know how to pronounce it, that term. So I had to do some study in terms of what they do. Marge, So, what they do is they keep you alive during surgery. And in doing some further research, they have a motto which says that their job is 99% boredom and 1% panic. See, because generally what happens is that the ordinary just occurs. So, heart's beating regularly, 99% of the time. But it's having that extra oil, that ability, right then and there when things shut down, to be on the spot taking care of it. Kind of like, I guess, people who, guide planes into land, that they have to have that extra oil, that ability to stand up when most needed. That's what I think those events, whenever you have experiences of people saying, boy, did you ever save me and help me and turn me around? Or things like this. We have a lot of stuff in our world that doesn't seem to have the kingdom of God materialized in it yet. We're on the way, but not there yet. Like, for example, I'm not sure we actually have the kingdom of God view of gun violence yet in hand. I don't think we're experiencing that everywhere. But can we have a burst of it from time to time? Like, for example, can we, witness something that already says that we have a safe place or that we're going to do whatever it takes to be safe? Things like equality, like equality, for different people. The Episcopal Church has always been at the lead of this, and you might remember one of our speakers for stewardship a couple weeks ago, she talked about why she likes being here is whenever she had a daughter, and she realized that where she was worshiping, her daughter didn't have equal opportunity, and she decided to look for a place where her daughter could have equal opportunity. Now, whenever I think sometimes you do things like that, you are having a burst of what the kingdom might be, that inclusiveness. So let's try to make it real. Just where do you see that extra oil bringing in the kingdom right now for you in different glimpses? Because people around you, I bet, do see that. So our prayer this week, or my prayer this week, is that we take some time to become reflective so that we first of all realize that Jesus will be back, that we do believe that Jesus will be back, that even now we have glimpses of what the kingdom might look like. And go out to find that, because that's what a wise bridesmaid does. They are prepared with enough oil to find out when it's needed, and they use it. Amen.